a regular season game. A regular season game, I'm really locked in,
Oh
truly
yeah,
locked into the games. A preseason game, I'm just casually watching, honestly speaking. Aaron Rodgers reportedly is going to play maybe two series during that game. They might, even yank him during the second series, but that's the plan. He'll be in for two series, then they'll go to Zach Wilson. I'm more interested in seeing Zach Wilson than Aaron Rodgers,
yeah.
okay, Saturday. We know what Aaron Rodgers could do. The only thing that's really of high interest is Aaron Rodgers making his Jet debut. So
Yeah.
so it's the first time he's ever going to take the field officially as a New York Jet, even though it's an exhibition game, it's not an official game. The first time he'll take it in a game condition that's more than a scrimmage, I should say. But we know what Aaron Rodgers could do. I mean, what are we expecting? So he hits a couple of passes, we're going to get all giddy. He's been doing that his whole life. I'm more curious over the progress of Zach Wilson to see whether he can do some good things or not. And like you were saying in the past show, it might all be an illusion. This might be the same Zach Wilson. It's like he's being marketed to us, in a certain way. Oh, look at Zach. He's improving. Zach is great. Zach hits a long pass now and then. So we get all excited. But, we'll see what transpires Saturday.
Well, not only is Aaron Rodgers taking the preseason game first for the Jets, he hasn't played a preseason game in years. This is the first preseason game he's played in a long time. And I think Aaron Rodgers will come out when Aaron Rodgers is ready to come out. If the timing isn't there and then the receivers aren't catching the ball or whatever happens, I think Aaron Rodgers goes in there till he has a good drive. So he may last longer, Jack. We'll see what happens as they're playing. I expect to see a very even though it's exhibition. I used to go watch the Giants and Jets play. It means a lot to the players to even win this exhibition game for the franchises too. So it should be a lot of fun. It should be loud, and it should be a lot of fun. So I can't wait.
Yeah, I think Robert Salah was talking about his intentions of how long he's going to play Aaron Rodgers. But you just said it. Let's say it goes 3-and-out. He's not going to yank Aaron Rodgers. He's going to say, Aaron, you want another series. If Aaron has two series that are really not acceptable to him, he might want to stay in for a third one. Even though Robert Salah would want him to come out, he'll leave him in, upon Aaron's request. There would be limits, I have to admit. If Aaron Rodgers wanted to play three-quarters of the game, then Robert Salah would stamp his authority as a head coach, saying, no, I'm sorry, Aaron, we're taking you out.
Right.
But Robert Salah would really have to get pushed to the wall more or less to take Aaron Rodgers out. Otherwise, Aaron Rodgers will decide how long he wants to be. He might want a one series. He might hit a couple of passes, and Aaron Rodgers will say, I'm okay. That's it for the night. And even though Robert Salah would have wanted to play him two series, he'll probably say, Aaron, you sure you don't want to go in for one more maybe? And Aaron Rodgers will say, no, Robert Salah will go, okay. That's it for the night.
The only way I could see Rodgers or Daniel Jones getting yanked early is if they're taking hits. If Rodgers starts getting hit in the backfield or Jones starts getting hit in the backfield, because you got to admit the Jets defense is very good. I think the Giants defense is going to be good this year, and I think if they start getting hit, they may yank their quarterbacks out. So
well, that's not really going to happen because the Jet offensive line is going to protect them enough, and the passes that Aaron Rodgers are going to throw as short passes. He's not going to stay in the pocket long.
All right, we'll see what happens, Jack.
A lot of dump offs.
Yeah. This season, I don't know if there'll be a 100-game winner this year, Jack. Normally we have 100 or 200-game winners. The Braves are the closest. Let me see where the Braves are at. The Braves are 82-44, so they got a shot at breaking 100. I don't think any other team will break 100 this year, Jack. So it's been pretty competitive. It's been pretty tight, where teams aren't winning as much games as they used to. There's no team out there besides, to me, the Braves that really have been dominating this year. So let me give you the standings real quick. You got Baltimore at 78-48, holding on. Tampa Bay is at 77-50, where they're within striking distance. You got Toronto at 70-58, and Boston is 67-60. In the Central, Minnesota is 65-62. The West, Texas is at 72-54. Houston at 72-56, and they just got trounced last night by the Sox by 17-1. As a matter of fact, Seattle's coming on there at 71-56. In the NL East, I talked about the Braves at 82.
No, wait. The AL East, the American League. One good team is going to miss the playoffs because out of the 3 wild card teams, I don't know who's going to be the division winner. For all we know, Tampa Bay overtakes Baltimore, but Baltimore would be a wild card,
Right.
even though I think Baltimore is going to win the division at this point. Houston and Texas, we don't know who's going to win the division. But the other one you would think would be a wild card. So between Seattle, Toronto, I think one of them is going to be missing the playoffs, even though it might be one of the other teams there. And of course,
Right.
the Minnesota Twins and the very weak division. So it looks like they're going to be the only team with a record that might be over 500. So they should get in the playoffs. I don't think the Cleveland Guardians are quite good enough to catch them, even though the Twins are very catchable.
I agree. In the East, as I was saying, Atlanta at 82-44, Phillies at 68-58, Miami at 68-59. In the Central, you have Milwaukee at 70-57, Chicago at 66-60, and Cincinnati at 67-61. In the West, the Dodgers 76-48, Arizona 66-61, and San Francisco at 66-51. So in the American League wild card race right now, you have Tampa Bay, Houston, and Seattle, the top 3 teams. And in the National League, it's all jumbled up. They're all within 4 games of each other. You have Philly, Chicago, and Cincinnati as the wild cards right now. Arizona, San Francisco, and Miami right there behind them. So, the NL is far from being decided as far as the wild cards. We were talking Philly might win, might get in this year. They might not, depending on how the rest of the season goes. Jack.
Philadelphia's a lock to be a playoff team. They're locked.
They're only 2.5 ahead, Jack.
There are 3 teams that get in there. Look at how many games they're over 500. Look at the lead they'll have over some of the other teams there.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you the records, Jack. Philly is 68-58. Arizona and San Francisco, which are the 2 last teams, are 66 and 61. They're only 2 games back. So,
I'm looking. The Philadelphia Phillies are 11 games over 500 here. And
right.
I'm looking, I see what you're saying. Well, a team like Chicago is 5 games back. It's Arizona 6 over 500. The Phillies up by a few games in the wild card race.
Right.
They should be fine. I shouldn't say that they're a lock. They're not quite a lock, but they have the first wild card position right now. So 3 teams would have to pass them in the wild card hunt. And the 3 teams, Chicago is 2 games behind them. Arizona's 2 games behind them. And the Giants are 2.5 games behind them. Yeah, so it's in the Phillies' hands. All 3 teams directly behind them right now would have to play really well, and the Phillies would have to fall off a bit. It's possible, but I doubt it.
And MLB news, Ohtani tears his UCL. He's done pitching for the season. I heard he'll still be hitting. I spoke about this a couple weeks ago, Jack. He was showing signs of throwing the ball where he was giving up a lot of home runs. He had one good game, and then he'd give up a lot of home runs the next game. This is why the batters can pitch. This is one of the reasons, Jack, because of the amount of strain that you put on your arms, and the throwing motion and swinging motion are 2 different things. This is why the Yankees stopped Babe Ruth from pitching, except for spot starting him. It wasn't because he couldn't pitch anymore. He wasn't good. He was still a great pitcher. But the Yankees knew way back when that if they did both, it would hurt Babe Ruth pitching down the line. So the Yankees were smart a long time ago, and the Angels, I think, they said Ohtani's not going to have it operated on right now. So I don't know what's going to happen with Ohtani. Does his market value drop now that he can't pitch? Or what's going to happen with Ohtani when he comes up on free agency?
First off, Mac, I don't subscribe to your theory at all. I don't want to hear, well, they swing a bat. It's a different motion from throwing a ball. These guys in the weight room all the time. They're moving their arms. What do you think they're doing in the weight room? So I don't want to hear if you lift any weights, it's an unnatural motion as opposed to you throwing the ball. So you can injure your arm by virtual weight training or even doing calisthenics. I just don't want to hear it. It's nonsense. Guys who only pitch, have injuries all the time. Look at Clayton Kershaw, guys like that. It happens all the time. It's got nothing to do with Ohtani swinging the bat. Nothing at all to do with it. And you point to Babe Ruth. For whatever reason, they wanted him to exclusively be a hitter. Okay, to me, they should have pitched him as well, but they didn't. Fine. They certainly didn't make the wrong decision, judging the way his career turned out.
Right.
But to answer your question with Ohtani's market value, might it make some teams hesitate? It might actually do that. But with Ohtani, he's more than just a player. He's a commodity. He's a commodity. Very few players are commodities. What they mean for the franchise as far as the revenue that they can get by having an Ohtani there. You market Ohtani. He's not just a ball player. But moving forward, someone's going to have to give him at least a 10-year contract, it would seem. And that's going to take him to close to age 40. And you have to think, what's he going to be doing for you if he's playing all those years? He's always going to be able to swing a bat, but is he going to play the field? Is he going to pitch? And if he pitches, how effective is he going to be? If he has arm difficulty, yeah, it could be an issue for what they're going to pay. Because in Ohtani, the money's going to be so great. It's going to be coming around. They're going to start at $50 million. They might top it off at this point at about $55 million per year. Okay. And you got to think, are you paying $30 million a year for designated hitter Ohtani? But if he's that good a hitter, which he is, you have a David Ortiz type hitter, you could say he's worth it. And then you're going to be paying another $25 million a year for 10 years on top of that for a questionable arm, okay, that may be injured. You just don't know. You just don't know. It's interesting with the Angels are kind of shutting him down for the rest of the year. They're working along with him. And you kind of wonder with Ohtani where he's going to go to. That's a bigger question because he's going to pitch again. It seems like the Angels are being very extra careful with him. He should pitch again, but they're working along with him as if he's going to be on that team long term, even though they have no commitment from him. Speaking of arms, Steven Strasburg has announced his retirement. He hasn't pitched since 2022. After the Nationals won the World Series a few years ago, they gave him a big contract, $35 million a year. His arm went out on him. And Steven Strasburg had great stuff. When he came up to the Nationals, he pitched for them alongside Max Scherzer there. It looked like Steve Strasburg could potentially have a Hall of Fame career, but with injuries and all, things didn't quite work out. Look, they won a World Series. He was a top-of-the-line pitcher for a while, but he falls into kind of the Jacob deGrom category. It would seem that they didn't quite play out the whole career as long as you would have liked to have seen.
Well, I'll tell you, if I'm an owner, I go out and I get Ohtani. I don't want him pitching on the regular. I wouldn't do that. He'd be a hitter.
Yeah, then you don't get. I don't think you get Ohtani.
I would try to get him back in the outfield again, maybe, and let him hit. And if I needed a pitcher for a spot thing, that's how I'd use him. I would not want to hurt him any more than his elbow's hurting right now. I wouldn't want that. So
well, that those are possibilities. If Ohtani would agree, you have him play the field. He's a full-time outfielder or first baseman or whatever, however you want to use him. And once in a while, you bring him in the ninth inning to get a
Right.
guy out. You might enjoy doing it. You use him kind of like you would a little leaguer. You don't overdo his arm. He's not part of your start. He won't. He's not part of your rotation, even if he's a bullpen guy going forward. He just comes in once in a while in the ninth inning.
Right.
And he lets the manager know I'm in a good mood. You need me to get one or two guys out. He might actually enjoy that.
It's possible.
And you
Jack.
have to figure, as long as Ohtani could keep hitting the way he's hitting, he doesn't have to pitch. He's going to be box office. He's going to be a big draw. People are going to want to come out to see him play, and he's going to mean a lot dollar-wise to the organization for them to give him the type of contract he seeks.
No doubt, no doubt. The Tampa Rays take down all Wander Franco likeness from their site. We talked a little bit about that before. He was caught with a underage girl, I think, in the Dominican Republic or something like that. So that's that. In the NFL news, Trey Lance and Jonathan Taylor, the two maybe biggest stories. Trey Lance, of course, is the third-string quarterback. Might be traded. The latest thing I heard is his 49ers are going to try and keep him. If I'm in Trey Lance's, let me say this to you, Jack. I talked to Jim and Byron about this. Remember when Joe Theismann and Doug Flutie first went out of college? They both went to Canadian Football League. Joe Theismann had a great year. Flutie had record-breaking years in CFB, and then they went in the NFL. And I think right, and correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Flutie even a Heisman Trophy winner, Jack? When he was at Boston?
But Mac, I know where you're going with this. You're feeling that Trey Lance could benefit playing in the Canadian Football League
or USFL.
At USFL, I don't see it, Mac. The game is so superior in the NFL. It's so much faster, so much bigger. I mean, I think he would best be served going elsewhere to another franchise where he could be made the primary backup quarterback. Some teams would do that for him. Listen, at the end of the day, you ever hear the term in show business, you either got it or you don't. He needs the experience. We don't know with Trey Lance for sure.
Right. So you're making my point. My point.
No,
if he goes to another team, Jack, he's not gonna get the experience of playing, except for in practice. If he goes to the USFL or XFL or whatever, or Canadian football for that matter, if he does that, he might have a shot at getting playing experience. That's what the kid needs. The kid don't need to sit behind somebody anymore. He's already done that, and we know what that has. Hold on, we got Byron coming in here, and maybe he can share his thoughts. So, like I talked to you and Jim about.
Byron, he thought Scott Bruner was better than Phil Simms when he played with both of them. He went all over saying that. So what does Byron know about QB?
Yeah, Bruner threw me my first touchdown. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
That's right. So, Byron, I talked to you and Jim about this before the show on Wednesday. Trey Lance is either going to be traded. I heard San Francisco may keep him. Problem with Trey Lance is he's not going to get any significant real playing time if he stays in the NFL. Even if he gets traded, they were talking about Philadelphia or Baltimore. He's not going to get in a competition to start for the year. That's not going to happen. He just doesn't have the experience.
Yeah.
So if he goes and he plays in one of these, I don't even want to call them feeder leagues or whatever, G leagues, whatever you want to call it. If he goes and he plays in the USFL, XFL, the Canadian Football League, he has a shot to maybe start in one of these at one of these teams here. At least compete.
He would start in the USFL. I mean, not a shot. Obviously, he would start in the USFL.
Okay, so Byron, if he did, this would actually give him playing experience during a game, learning maybe how to read defenses, when to throw, all this good stuff that he's not going to get in the NFL. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. He definitely needs more experience, and definitely needs some reps and playing experience. And he just got to get the speed of the game down. There's so much that he had to learn and adapt to. And right now, he needs that experience hands on. Evidently, he's not quite ready yet because he's just not prepared. It seems like.
Yeah, I don't know that 100% not being ready, because if you look at the 49er roster, they nearly have to start Brock Purdy because he was successful when he filled in last year. And the players seem to want Brock Purdy to start. And the players do have an influence on the coaching staff. If they all basically are coming to the coaching staff and they want a guy, coaching staff, usually it'll adhere to their wishes. And then they got Sam Darnold. But isn't Sam Darnold in a way the same situation as Brock Purdy? He's a backup. I agree with what you're saying, Mac. Trey Lance being on the 49ers is a bad fit at this point. As a third string quarterback, he's going nowhere. But when you're on with the second team, you do get some reps. You can develop. And there's a reasonable chance before the year's out, you're going to see the field because you're the first guy in an injury. So there are some good situations around the NFL for him. He's not going to start for anyone no matter what at this point. But let's say he went to a team like the Falcons. He was behind a Desmond Ridder. I'm just giving an example. A Sam Howell. I don't know how those guys are going to be. A few other teams, you know, the quarterback goes down. Trey Lance is getting his reps with the second team. He gets a shot. If he goes to the plays with the USFL, it's not going to speed up his NFL career at all. You know, it just doesn't want to do a great deal for him.
There were a few USFL quarterbacks that came up that are finding roster spots, Jack.
Roster spots. Trey Lance has a roster spot.
I'm just saying that these guys.
Go
ahead.
He have a roster spot just because he was the first one of the first three guys picked, based off of his experience and his confidence and things that he need. That's what he don't have. I mean, he seems like he don't have that. He need that.
But let me throw this at you guys. If you could use a backup quarterback in your team, would you give a 5th round draft choice for Trey Lance? 5th round. I think I might do it. I would take a chance on his potential. 5th round draft choices have a chance of making a team the following year. A better than 50-50 chance, okay, of making the team. But they're not supposed to have an impact usually. You take a chance on a Trey Lance like the Giants did, and I'm sure you're going to come up with this with an Isaiah Simmons. They gave a 7th round draft pick, which could be a throwaway draft pick. You know, you could afford to trade that type of draft pick and take a fly on a guy. And a team would do that for Trey Lance. Someone would give a draft pick for Trey Lance, but to the Niners, it's not worth getting a 6th to 7th round pick. They're not going to give Trey Lance away for that. They'd rather keep him as a 3rd string quarterback, but that shows you he still has some value to them.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's talk a little bit about Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor, of course, is unhappy. He wants to be traded. The owner gave him till Tuesday, I think, is about a week to find a team. Now, I don't know if you followed James Harden's situation with Philly. And I think this could become a James Harden situation where they're going to want a boatload of stuff for Jonathan Taylor because he was a leading rusher last year. And I don't know if another team's going to give him that. So even if he does try to request a team, if I'm not mistaken, only 2 teams are seriously talking to the Colts about Jonathan Taylor. I don't know if he goes anywhere, Byron. He might end up with the Colts next year, and the Colts have the rights to him. So he may end up with the Colts again next year, and we're going to go through the whole same situation again next year.
Yeah, don't think bad about that. If he end up sitting out or missing games and don't have the production, it's all about what you do on the field. You know, they were showing a survey about what the way the game has shifted from paying the quarterback average of $50 million a year, and the running backs around about $10 to $13 million a year. It's just it's just something that's happening now in the NFL. And I think Jonathan Taylor it's all about timing. It's about being healthy. And, right now he's saying his ankle injured. So there's a lot of things that's in the equation that's really don't make sense. But, whenever a running back starts sitting out, you think about Avion Bell and those guys, things start going south and, negativity start coming into the equation. So there's a lot of things that he needs to think out and make sure that he's active, engaged, and it's about timing when you get ready to negotiate that contract.
Yeah.
I think Jim Irsay, guys, the Colts owner is starting to become maybe the worst owner in the NFL. He puts out this Jonathan Taylor deal. That's not realistic. Did he really, in his right mind, think anyone's going to give him a first-round draft choice for Jonathan Taylor? Not that Jonathan Taylor isn't a terrific player, but look at the market right before. You had Dalvin Cook, a heck of a running back. No one was lining up to get him. There wasn't much of a market for Dalvin Cook. Eventually, he went to the Jets. He even wanted to go to his hometown team, the Dolphins, who didn't jump all over. And he's telling Jonathan Taylor, make your own deal. Jonathan Taylor doesn't have the authority to make a deal. What's someone going to give up for Jonathan Taylor? Maybe a team would give up a third-round draft choice. Let's say they do. Maybe even a second round. Let's make believe that could happen. He certainly has that value. He's only 24 years old, but he's been injured. There's a bit of a problem. But this is what happens. A team gets Jonathan Taylor, and guess what? They're not working out a new contract for him at this point. So he's going to have to play for the same $4 million or so a year that he was going to get from the Colts. So how happy is Jonathan Taylor going to be? He's not going to be getting more money this year. The same thing happened when the Jets traded Adams to Seattle, Jamal Adams. He didn't get his new contract till a year later. Okay, how happy can the player be? So for Jonathan Taylor, this is a mess. And the way Irsay's handled this, how can Jonathan Taylor now come back to the Colts? Because chances are no deal's working out. They're not just going to give him away. So he comes back to play for the Colts this year. He's unhappy. He might even miss some games. If he feels the slightest twinge, he'll say, I'm not pushing myself for this organization. I'll play when I really feel like it, when I'm 100%. And he'll show flashes of what he could do to make someone maybe interested in him next year. It's a messy situation. Awful job by Irsay.
Well, Ursula needs to shut up. I think owners need to do what they do. They own the team. You hire people to run the organization, and you don't mess it, make it more messier. And right now it's messy. And I just think too, these young players. That's why I say young players in their 20s need to have some mentoring, have some guys that they can talk to, and have the right agent to go in and represent you correctly. Because it can be, it can be a situation where you end up missing games. And it's gonna be worse than what he's the situation they're in now. So I just think too that it's all about timing. This guy had 1,800 and something yards rushing last year or whatever, led the league, and he should consider about just focus on what he needs to do, and that's on the football field, and have some people to handle your business, and then get the right get some of the right decisions behind it, because it's all about your choice and decision. The second contract is going to be your biggest contract probably for a running back anyway.
That's true. That's true. But, you say Irsay should shut up, but so should Jerry Jones. Listen, their owners is their team. They can say what they want. Right. I don't think Philly will give up a first-round draft choice for Taylor. I mean, that GM over there is pretty he's pretty shrewd. I don't think he gives.
Now they're set at running back, it seems. I mean, anyone would love Jonathan Taylor. Don't get me wrong. How much money, Byron, do these teams have with the cap at this point? There's not a lot. You really got to get creative to pay a guy at this point.
I agree.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing that in the equation, the salary cap. Some of these teams don't have that much to offer. That's why, only certain teams, I think 2 teams are looking at maybe trying to see if they can negotiate something, but you got limited resources for his money.
You're very right. Dak Prescott is in talks with Dallas for a $50 million extension. Byron, if I'm the Dallas Cowboys owner, I want him to show me this year that he can take that step. That he can win a playoffs, take us to the NFC Championship. I don't know what Jerry Jones seems to love Dak Prescott, but we're talking about money now. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know what you think.
I don't think they're going to happen either, because they talking about CeeDee Lamb and Michael Parsons. They got to get those players signed. Zach Martin just signed his new deal, so I don't see why they talking about why they talking about Dak Prescott right now when they got other things they need to be concerned about.
I was a little surprised Jerry Jones paid Zach Martin. He worked out the deal with him because he could have played hardball. Zach Martin had 2 years left. And at the time he signed them, Zach Martin was what? The highest paid guard in NFL history. But you sign a long term deal, the contract, the value goes up in that position as the years go along. So you're not going to be the highest paid player after a while. Guys are going to pass you. That's just the way it's done. And he had 2 years left on that deal, but Jerry Jones accommodated him. But you're right what you said, Byron, a moment ago. Micah Parsons, that's the big fish. That's a guy who's going to have to get the big money. You can only mess with him so long. There's no way getting around paying Micah Parsons. And I can't see with Dak Prescott, him, working out like a big extension, at this point. He's got to prove himself. If he doesn't have a good year, it's conceivable Dallas would look elsewhere in the quarterback market.
So Byron checked out for a minute. Hopefully he gets back on. Jets wide receiver Gray Davis retires at 28. I expect to see him next year or the year after that with another team, Jack. I just think he wanted out of the Jets for some reason.
We don't know with any player what's going on. I mean, the NFL life is tough. They have families. They're away in training camp. They've made X amount of money. And sometimes a player just doesn't enjoy playing as much as he did, at another point. Most guys want to hang on as long as they can, play as long as possible. Byron can relate to that. We're just talking about, any player retiring or whatever. Some guys want to scratch and claw and play to the last drop. They would play to age 65 if they could, but other guys, they hit a wall. They love the game, 1 month, and by the next month, they somehow, just want to get on with life, and they don't mind leaving it.
Yeah, it's a young man game, no doubt. It takes some guys a little longer, and they want to hold on. Reality need to hit, and you need to go in there with an exit strategy, and that's anything anyway. So you're absolutely right. That's why I think you need to be around some veterans, some guys who've been through it, and some guys who can share testimonials, and that way can help you, get that further down the road, because this is about your family and other things. It's a lot of factors that's in the equation, but a lot of guys thinking that their body go do the same thing, be able to produce. But it's this world. We don't. It does. The reality of it is that it's gonna hit home, and things. The body and getting up and the aches and the pains and things do affect you in the long run. Another thing too. Players have to work out with weights and stuff, and their neck get bigger, and that's why they have sleeping problems and breathing problems. So there's a lot of other things to consider in life. Once you go to the football factor.
Yeah, I believe you're right in that. And with that, we're going to go to the Giants news. The latest, the Giants have the GM Schoen, to me, is becoming one of the best GMs in the league. Gets another steal. He picks up Simmons for a 7th round conditional draft choice, Byron. Simmons, as you remember, in 2020, there was a decision whether they should take Isaiah Simmons or their big tackle, Andrew Thomas. They ended up taking Thomas. So Simmons goes to the Cardinals. They end up getting Simmons back, and he's going to hook up with Thomas, who was an ex-Clemson guy.
So, wait. I have to ask you, Mac, when you say conditional 7th round draft choice, I thought it was just a straight out 7th round draft choice.
Oh, it's conditional. So if he does better, maybe it moves. Maybe they move up in the draft order. Maybe they go.
Yeah, they can go fifth.
Right. Depending on how well Simmons plays.
Oh, if he has a really good year for the Giants, they might have to give a 5th round pick, perhaps.
Yeah, something like that. Exactly.
So,
if you come in and play a lot, based off his performance.
Yeah. I thought it was a straight 7th. Yeah.
So Simmons is one of those hybrid players that can be a linebacker or a safety. And this just gives Wink Martindale another weapon. Now, I don't know if Simmons I think the linebacker position of the Giants is a little weaker than the rest of the positions right now. So
Yeah.
I think that's where they may start him out. He may end up, becoming that safety that comes up and plays against the run and blitzes and stuff like that. Good move by Shohen, you think?
Oh, absolutely. Because Wayne Martindale, if he need to get that extra player like that hybrid guy, because last year is really when Aaron Rodgers started getting off base, or when the Giants played Green Bay Packers, because Wayne Martindale defense was hitting Aaron Rodgers all over the place, and he's like that type of defense. And that's the way he always prepare his team. And so this is gonna be exciting to watch the defense now.
Yeah, when you think of it, Simmons was taken 8th overall in the draft 3 years ago by Arizona, and he's shown flashes of being really good, but he hasn't been consistent at all, and he just hasn't played the game as smartly as he could be. The book on him is great athlete, but not a natural football player. So he's got to be taught. Some guys are great athletes have to be taught to play football, actually. And I think he comes into that category. But with Wink Martindale there, let's see. He might develop. It might turn out to be a steal for the Giants. Good deal for the Giants.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a conditional pick. I thought it was a 7th-round draft pick. But even if they gave up a 5th-round draft pick to him right now, I'd say good deal. Okay? Because he's as good as anyone you're going to get with a 5th, 6th, or 7th-round pick in next year's draft.
And you got to remember, at Clemson, he won the Buckus Award, so he is a good linebacker. He was a playing linebacker at Clemson. I forget the stats were. I know he had I know he had some interceptions and sacks and stuff like that. Tom Swaney, former Buffalo Bill tight end that the Giants picked up, collapsed during practice. He had to be carted off the field. Byron, I don't know. They said some kind of medical condition. I don't know if you heard anything different than what I heard. But this may affect whether he makes the team or not, sadly.
Yeah. And unfortunately for him that, the weather or whatever. But, I hope he's okay. And I hope he can, evidently they like him, and I think that's the key when you're bringing in some players that you're familiar with. But unfortunately for him, the timing might have been bad. But hopefully he's okay. And they can see if he'll be okay when the season starts. But maybe they might have to put him on injury reserve.
Yeah, that's a good point. They could do that. That's one of the options they do have. Well, we're going to be cutting down after this game to the 53-man roster, not counting the 16 practice squad players. This is where special teams comes into play right now, Byron, whether you make the team or not. The Giants got some good skilled people that may not make the team because they don't play special teams. Shepard, I love Shepard. Cole Beasley's a good slot receiver, but these guys don't play special teams. And if you don't play special teams, they got 4 tight ends. They got 5 running. There's a couple of people are going to be cut. A few people are going to be cut, and it might be a good player just because they don't play special teams, Byron. Byron, I froze him. He's thinking about it right now, Jack.
Byron's thinking. He's analyzing, whether.
Yeah, he's like, wow, I just blew him away with that, Jack.
Yeah, that was a tough. Mac, you got to ease off on the questions. You're pushing guys too hard, like a coach is pushing a player too hard.
Yeah,
pushing us too hard with these questions get tougher and tougher. And then you have the 2-a-days, the 2-a-minutes.
It's crazy.
Should a player? That's pretty thought-provoking too, which a lot of people don't consider, but coaches think about it all the time. If they have to make a decision between 2 players and it's pretty close, their talent level, they'll look, and they use one on special teams once in a while as opposed to another. And the one they could use on special teams is usually going to be given the nod, if all factors are close to being equal.
Definitely, Jack. And if you don't play special teams at all, I'm not saying that they're going to get rid of Hyatt or somebody of that caliber, but a different receiver that's not going to be for depth or something like that. They may end up getting rid of somebody that the fans really like. So I don't expect Hyatt to be kicked out or a Slayton. But
You know what? You know what's interesting about special teams? You think of the amount of players used on special teams. Most of them could be used in one way or another. But receivers are going to be there for an onside kick, because they're used to handling the ball, have good hands. Would you ever use a quarterback on the onside team to recover a kick that's being kicked? I'm just thinking out loud now because the quarterbacks have truly good hands for something like that because they're used to handling the football all the time. It gets snapped to them. So you would think they would have good hands too, different from a receiver. Would you put your quarterback on the line to feel the ball, a squib kick?
If I was the Jets, I would. But other than that,
interesting. No, well, listen.
Trey
a
Lance.
Mobile quarterback.
Trey
I'm
Lance.
talking about a mobile quarterback, a Daniel Jones who's very mobile, who you would think has good hands, who can get the ball, turn to the side.
No.
We had Jeff Hostetler. We used Jeff Hostetler a lot back in the day.
Okay, yeah.
But not too often. Not too often. Unless they physical. Like Jeff Hostetler was pretty tough. But you got and they do handle the ball a lot. So you're absolutely right. But
yeah, I just wondered. Yeah, would you use a quarterback to field an onside kick? Because you don't see that.
I think you can use them now because they run a lot more too. So back then, back in the day,
Lance.
Trey
Lance or something.
Trey Lance, yeah. You could. I know it seems weird. I don't know how often they practice that fielding onside kicks, but I know it's got to be practiced obviously now and then. But that's a good point. You have a Trey Lance there, should be used to handling the ball, and
Heck, if I was San Francisco 49er coach, I'd put him back there receiving kicks and punts. The heck with it. Let him play.
Oh, well, no, you're going a little too far there.
I don't think so. Anyway,
in this day and age on kickoffs, I would just take the ball on the 25-yard line all the time because you're seldom going to do better than that.
Well,
just take it on the 25 and move forward.
Well, if you got a good kick returner, he can get it past the 25 because they don't run and start like they used to either.
That's right. Wait till the ball is kicked, and Jack would always. I would know Jack would take it on the 20. He's no way he's returning the kick there.
No, I never returned the kick.
No. Wink Martindale cannot wait to go up against Aaron Rodgers again. He loves matching wits with the Hall of Fame quarterback. It didn't work out too well for Aaron Rodgers last time they did that, but of course, that was last year. We'll see what happens this year. As me and Jack.
Yeah, he said that he really respect Aaron Rodgers. He called him the Titan. He called him one of the elite players. So they got a lot of respect for each other. So you like playing chess. They like to move some things around. But it could be fun to see what happened. The first and second series of the game.
Yes,
I think Aaron Rodgers I can't imagine not taking one shot down the field just for the excitement, the adrenaline factor. I could see him going once long to, Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I could see that too. And I could see Thibodeau sacking Rodgers right in front of Jack, and that would be heaven to me. If Thibodeau could sack Rodgers one time, get around that big Becton dude with his speed and hit Rodgers, it would be great. Really
Jack, would you do something for me this weekend? If you have a chance, go down there and get Thibodeau autograph for me.
Listen, I mean, they got a guy. If Isaiah Simmons comes along, has a great year, by some chance, that's going to help Thibodeau out. The other guys are playing well. It's kind of releasing. Well, I know you're talking about Wink Martindale. What was it, 3 weeks ago? He was chewing the team out for lack of effort, but his eyes were locked on Thibodeau the whole time. Okay.
Wink don't
but
play.
Thibodeau, I think he's gonna be ready when the season starts. I think that's what you do. You get them ready, fired up to. I mean, this preseason, it's a lot of waste of time. But now, if we getting ready for the nuts and bolts of the game.
Yes. This is going to be. It's going to be. I don't care what anybody says, exhibition or not. It's going to be a war out there. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Even if it's the third, Jack. Even if it's the third stringers. I mean, trying to make the team.
Oh, third stringers. Yeah.
It's going to.
It's gonna be a war. It's definitely gonna be a war.
No, I think this is very important. The key to this game, at least from the Jets' perspective, is going to be the offensive line is on trial because supposedly it's peaking somewhat. I mean, it's still not the best, but it's gotten better. They're improving as a unit. And you mentioned Becton before. He can't have a bad game. I mean, and there's that certain confidence fact, I think, going into the first game. If the offensive line plays a dreadful game, and let's say Thibodeau does get through easily and he sacks Rodgers, and let's say Rodgers is sacked twice, that doesn't breed confidence going into the first game. You don't want to go in with a lot of doubts. But with that said, the Jets play the Buffalo Bills in the first game, and the Bills have some serious problems on their offensive line, but at least Josh Allen is a running quarterback who mixes it up a little bit. Unlike Aaron Rodgers, that if the offensive line collapses, where's Rodgers really going to go?
Yeah, exactly.
The young defensive cornerbacks of the Giants. We're talking about defense mostly today, folks, on the Giants. Both rookies. Well, one's a rookie. One was a rookie last year. He's in his second year. They're playing lights out in exhibition right now. Deonte Banks has given up 0 receptions on 33 passes to the guy he's playing against. So great fourth round, great pick by the Giants to go out and get Deonte Banks right away. It was a great move. That was my biggest concern coming into this year, besides the Giants' offensive line. Defensively was the defensive backfield, Byron. They got burned a lot, especially against the Cowboys and the Eagles last year. And they're going to have to match up with 2 of the best receiving cores in the conference this year. It's going to be very important. Again, Byron he's thinking hard about this, Jack. I mean, I got to.
Byron, I mean, you listen, Mac. I mean, these are tough questions that Byron's analyzing here, what to do. But consider this, Mac. You're going against third-string offenses a lot of the time. If, your starters are supposed to play well against players like that.
But he is a rookie, too, Jack.
You want to look good in the preseason.
Right.
I mean, they're different categories. Some guys definitely are making the team, and it's just getting ready for game one, and they're going to start. Other guys are scratching and clawing, to make it and not get cut. But with that said, the Giants, I have to admit, aren't looking bad. I don't consider them a weak link at all. But how good they're going to be, they were 9-7-1 last year. I mean, I could see them being in the 9-8 category, maybe the 10-7 category, maybe the 8-9 category. I don't see them being a powerhouse team, but I don't see them having a really poor year either.
Well, like I said, like I was saying, Byron, before you froze because the question was so tough. I was, Deonte Banks and the young. I think the Giants season. This is how much I think about this. The Giants season on defense will go as far as these young players, these young defensive backs go.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the Eagles, who have one of the best 2 receivers in the league, the Dallas, who has a 3 receiver, they're going to have to be able to stop these guys. I mean, we're going to pressure them, but you still got to be able to cover these guys.
Absolutely, but the one good thing that I've seen thus far with the early on in the preseason and practice for the Giants, they right there with the receivers. Those guys can run, great agility and great ability, and it's kind of reminding me of what happened with the Jets defensive backs last year. I think you got some young players, and they come in and they need to play. And right now, that's what they've been doing. I mean, for us practice, scrimmages, and things like that, they've been doing well, very well. So I'm excited to see if these guys can hold on for the season because they're going to get tested throughout the year for sure.
Yeah. So
some of these players too. You have to consider the coaching, the Giants' past history of coaching young players, because certain guys thrived elsewhere, like Eli Apple, Bradbury. They thrived elsewhere, and they didn't stick it out with the Giants. Kadarius Toney. He's now a key receiver with the Chiefs. He's hurt at the moment. Evan Ingram, key tight ends with Jacksonville. And you talk about good teams, I just mentioned the Bengals with Eli Apple. They went to a Super Bowl with him. Kadarius Toney, the Chiefs win a Super Bowl. Jacksonville Jaguars are on the rise with Evan Ingram. And why didn't it quite work out long term with the Giants? I mean, these guys are talented. If they had the coaching, these guys could have maybe been Giants, a good part of their career.
But these players didn't have the same coaching that they have now with the Giants. So that's another factor.
That's what I mean. Yeah, exactly. If they had the same coaches as the staff right now, who knows? But Kadarius Toney did. It didn't work out with him. But why couldn't it work out with the Giants and Brian DeBall and your great GM Joe Shine? But he goes to Andy Reid, and all of a sudden he's a Boy Scout with Andy Reid. He's good. He's listening, because he's under proven leadership of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. You played with guys like that, proven leadership. Okay,
Yeah.
That's what we joke about Thibodeau. But had he been in those old Giant teams with Harry Carson, LT, he would have been a better player than he is now. Maybe he will develop into the player you think he is, but he would have been a little more advanced. I'm sure a little more focused.
So they gonna get in his ear this year and get him right. So he needs some of them old guys back from the 80s.
Not all veterans are like that, though. Some of them just, I'm sure, do their own thing. I don't know how Leonard Williams is. And Leonard Williams, a pretty good player, not a great player, but he's not a Harry Carson, to get in Thibodeau's there. I'm just giving an example. You got to get the leaders from somewhere. And those old-time Giant teams, they had great leadership. Great leadership.
That is true.
And you have that type of leadership now. I'm not saying you don't have leadership, but is it the type that is going to keep everyone in line?
Yeah, and that's what they need. They definitely need that. Somebody got to step up. So hopefully we can get somebody to step up. And Harry Carson and those guys need to start walking through the locker room. We have the alumni weekend, and that'd be a good time to sit down and chat with some of these young players. So that'd be really good. If they need to do that more often. And I know Green Bay has it. A lot of teams have the alumni coming in, and that's really good. I think it's necessary to have that coming through your locker room.
I'll go back to Kadarius Toney again for a second. Kadarius Toney is hurt. He was hurt when he played with the Giants. I don't know if Kadarius Toney is going to do anything as a San Francisco or as a Kansas City Chief.
He had a great punt return. That was a key to them.
So what, Jack? He had a great punt return. So what? He's hurt again, and that's one of the reasons we got rid of him. He was never on the field.
I think it was a maturity issue.
Well, that too. But I don't think he's going to be that.
It could be. We keep saying young players. Sometimes there's a problem with veteran players as far as an attitude goes. Like we talk about young player, Micah Parsons, he's a leader already. He's a major leader. He's only been in the league a couple of years. He's a young player, but no one looks at him, he's got to get mentored. No one mentors Micah Parsons at this stage. He'll do the mentoring. Or Micah Parsons would get in a veteran's face right now because he's established. But,
that's why you have to get to know these players too. He came from Penn State. Look at Saquon Barkley from Penn State. These guys got character. They got character. So these guys know how the game should be played, and I think that's why you pick and choose players come from character organizations, character universities, and so that's the key thing too. So
Byron, you can't compare Parsons to Carson. I mean, Michael Parsons is a loudmouth. Likes to instigate. He likes to instigate. He likes to instigate fights at practice. He's on social media taunting the Eagles. Carson didn't do that.
No, I'm not comparing him to Carson. I'm just comparing him to coming in and making a very impactful part of the team. I mean,
he's a great player. He is great. I'm not taking nothing, but to call him a leader when he's starting fights in practice, that's not a leader. That's an instigator. Maybe that's
I
what
didn't know he started that fight in practice. Did he start? I didn't know that.
Oh,
Sometimes they try to rile things up. Sometimes you don't like what's going on in practice and you really want to shake things up. But Mike McCarthy had a talk with them after and said maybe they should cool it a little. But Micah Parsons is raring to go. He wants to get to the Super Bowl so badly, you can sense that he's stirring things up with his teammates. And let's be honest about it. The Dallas Cowboys need a kick in the butt. It does not hurt them. Now, Micah Parsons, I'm sure he's not going to mess with a Zach Martin, veterans like that. But certain guys need a kick in the butt. Okay, then Micah Parsons will supply it because he's that good of a player. So no, when you're a great player, you can afford to do stuff like that. If you're just a so-so player and you stir things up, it's not going to go over well. You mentioned before, Byron, Saquon Barkley, and we were talking about leadership. What do you think? Had Saquon Barkley held out a few weeks and just joined the Giants, let's say this week, could he have possibly had the same leadership role going forward once you sit out a few weeks? By him coming to camp early, despite the contract dispute, did he fully retain his position as more or less the leader on that team?
Absolutely. He's a captain, and they highly respect him. That's why these guys got the C's on their jersey. So, yeah, I think he would have been okay. I don't think it would have been nothing of a big deal if he sit out to the last week. It would because he brings a lot, and he was a big part of their offense. He still is.
Well, Rick Sherlock made a comment. He's a Minnesota Viking fan. Is there any leadership in Minnesota? Is Kirk Cousins a leader there?
Oh, that's Rick saying good morning. Hey, good morning, Rick. How you doing?
That was Kirk Cousins calling Jack right now for that question. Of course, Kirk Cousins is a leader. He's the quarterback over there. The quarterback is normally the leader. Thanks, Rick, for the comment. Jack just likes to get in there and stir things up, and even when he's not on the show, he does that. So,
I wonder what Kirk Cousins talking to Jack about.
It's probably about the way he treats him. I mean, he talks bad about Kirk Cousins asking that question. Of course, he's a leader. Minnesota, Byron, do you think that's with Rick on, very interesting division to me over there in the North. You got the Packers with Love, and Love looks good in preseason. Fields with Chicago. You got Detroit, which I don't think is going to be as good as next year, just my opinion. Mm-hmm. And you got what's the third team in there? The Vikings. And the Vikings don't look as good as last year as far as, to me, their personnel. I'd like to see what you guys think about who is that division going to be like 9-8, 8-9, 7. I mean, is that division going to be like that? Is that going to be like the South kind of?
I think so, but just because of what happened. I mean, when the Vikings lost David Cooks, when they lost Cook, I think that's going to hurt their offense production as well. And I think that Chicago is going to be a little bit tougher than what people think. So it's going to be interesting to see what happened over there.
I think you're right. So Byron, we got Keith Angle from TGI Sports. Hey. You got to cut out like you did last week, Byron?
I do. I have to go.
I'm starting to get a complex, Byron.
Hey, what's going on, Keith?
How are you, buddy?
Man, I'm so glad to see you. I'm ready for football. I tell you, I'm tired of this preseason stuff. So.
All right, let's play some real games.
And these two guys,
Mac thinks they're real games. Mac takes these exhibition games seriously.
It's a hard habit to break, Jack. It's the coach in me. Byron, you have a great one, and we'll see you next week, or we'll see you on J&B Talking Shop Wednesday night, 8 to 9. So there you go.
All right, you guys have fun at the game this week.
All right, we will. Thanks a lot, Byron. Keith Angle, TGI Sports Talk, here to talk a little bit about the Patriots, a little bit about college football, maybe. We'll see what we got with Keith coming up here. I got some random things to throw at him. So
all right, random. I like random.
Yes. Zeke Elliott says he's ready to go. He feels like he fits in with the Patriots. What do you think? How much is Zeke going to be used, do you think, Keith?
I think he's going to have a role here, a defined role probably, to spell Stevenson. probably short yardage, goal line stuff, even some of the pass packages, because he's a better pass blocker than Stevenson is. Even though Stevenson's a good receiver, he doesn't pass block very well, so that'll hinder his playing time a little bit. So I think that's where you'll see Zeke, assuming nothing major happens to Stevenson. So I think he'll be a role player.
Keith, Ezekiel Elliott kind of, to me, has a Cam Newton fit with the Patriots. Big name player. There's a lot of excitement. But realistically, how much can he give you at this point? I mean, if he had much left in the tank, other teams would have gone after him a little more aggressively. It's like he nearly fell into the Patriots' lap by default.
Yeah, it's possible that'll happen. But again, remember, they're not relying on him the way they were relying on Cam to be the starting quarterback. So, we're looking at a guy who's going to play 15 downs a game and maybe get 4 or 5 touches a game at that. And I think he can still contribute on that level.
He is a good receiver out of the backfield too. He does very well on screens and stuff like that, where he can get him open in open spaces and have the defensive backs try to tackle him. So I mean,
my only issue there is Stevenson has gotten really good out of the backfield as well. And if he blocked better, they wouldn't even think about taking him out on third down. But I do think he'll probably be out of a lot of third down situations because of what you just said, Mac, and his blocking ability.
Interesting. The 53 after this game, the 53-man roster, that's going to be the 16, of course, the 16 practice players. This is where, me and Jack were talking, and this is where the special teams comes into play. If you're not going to play special teams, some cases, even if you're a good player, you may not make the team because they're looking for, you got so much depth that even if it's a fan favorite or maybe a skill player that you like that could contribute, if he doesn't play special teams, he might end up getting cut. Is there any surprises that you see that might happen with the 53-man roster with the Patriots, Keith?
Well, surprises. I think you will see both the wide receivers that got drafted and both the offensive linemen that got drafted make the team. Big surprise, maybe not, but they were, again, the 2 wide receivers were drafted in the 6th round, Booty and Pop Douglas. Right. They're both contributing. Booty's played really well recently, and plus Thornton's now hurt again, which gives him a much better shot at making the team. I think Pop Douglas has made the team. They got a tough decision to make about Malik Cunningham. The question is going to be whether they think they can, if they cut him, whether they can re-sign him to the practice squad. They really want him on this team, but most likely on a practice squad to start. So they may roll the dice and see if they can another team doesn't take a shot at him. And then there's the kicking situation with the I'm trying to think of a guy who they signed, Ryland. Ryland was their draft pick this year. They picked a punter and a kicker.
Right.
And he has played pretty well in training camp, but he hasn't really just been, lights out better than all of a sudden the incumbent is now Nick Folk. He hasn't really played that much better, but he's got a much better leg. Folk can't kick off. I mean, you have to have another guy on the team sometimes the special teams to account for that. It's funny you mentioned special teams too, and I thought about this off the top, and then I got distracted. Special teams becomes more and more less important as they keep changing the rules. Kickoffs, you aren't going to need kickoff teams much longer because we're going to just do away with kickoffs before long. They keep putting in rules, fair catching inside the 10-yard line, you get it at the 25, and all these safety things they want to put in because it's considered the most dangerous play in football. It's also one of the most exciting plays in football. So I hate it when they put these rules in, and it does marginalize guys like Matthew Slater, who have made a career as tremendous special team players. So I hate to see some of the rules that they're putting in here. But
you mentioned Slater. It's interesting that Bill Belichick would say the 3 greatest players he ever coached. Slater was one of them. LT and Tom Brady, the other 2. The idea he put Slater in that type of company as a special teams player is revealing.
He's a big leader in that clubhouse. That's one of the big reasons he says
right. That. The last time you were on the show, I mentioned the book I'm reading that you read, Dynasty, about the New England Patriots. And something is thought-provoking to me. We know how cutthroat Belichick was, no matter how many years a player's with him, he'll cut that player. It is strictly professional, no personal feelings, at least as far as how he does business. If he might find himself in the same spot, if the Patriots are 8-9, 9-8, which is a possibility, and they'll make the playoffs, people are going to think, well, maybe Robert Kraft is going to be loyal to Belichick. Why should Robert Kraft show Belichick 1 ounce of loyalty? Because Belichick wouldn't show it to him and hasn't shown it to any players. He's never been loyal to anyone. He'll cut everyone left and right, like with Malloy, who he cut, others. Tom Brady, he tried to get rid of years ago.
He never changes philosophy. You can call it lack of loyalty, but he's been consistent. So I don't know if I would call it lack of loyalty or just good business sense in his mind. He'd rather always get rid of a guy a year too early than a year too late. You mentioned a great example in Lawyer Malloy, who still had a couple pretty good years in Buffalo when he left. Tom Brady obviously still had something left, certainly when he wanted to trade him, much less when Brady left. Ty Law, I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
I think of the lineman they traded to the Raiders. He's a Hall of Famer. Richard Seymour is a great example. So, yeah, if you want to use the same logic, you're right. Why should Kraft keep him around? He should want to get rid of Bill a year too early than a year too late, I guess. So.
But Bill Belichick cannot go to Robert Kraft and say, look at all I've done. I should expect to be given a little more slack based on my record, because you can't have it both ways. That's my point.
I don't think that Belichick will go there, begging to keep his job anyway. I think if Kraft decides to move on, that'll be that. It'll be over. If Belichick, even if they strip him of some of his power, let's say, he may say, that's fine. I'll move on.
I think Robert Kraft getting rid of Bill Belichick would be a terrible idea.
As do I.
I mean, I think he would be scared to get that. Bill Belichick has been there for what now? 20 years? I mean, that's like getting rid of an old couch that you love. I mean, that's a terrible example, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, this guy's been there. He's produced. They've gone to Super Bowls. They've won Super Bowls. And even when he has a bad team, Belichick finds a way to get them in the mix.
How would you like to be the guy that follows him in that job?
Forget it. I
would. Right, guys. Can you imagine this scenario? They do fire Belichick at the end of the year because the Patriots are so-so, and the Jets have a disappointing year, and Belichick actually comes to the Jets and coaches Aaron Rodgers. I mean, they'd be on Hard Knocks 2 years in a row if that were the case.
Well, they'd have to be, right? Because they wouldn't have made the playoffs if Sally got fired.
Very true.
By the way, Patriots don't make the playoffs next year and Belichick's still there. You may see him on Hard Knocks anyway because they won't be able to say no next year if they want him.
That's true.
If he doesn't make the playoffs.
That's very true. I don't know if you mentioned this, Keith, but Damon Douglas, shoulder injury. I guess they could put him on injured reserve if they wanted to keep him around. But I don't know if he would, make the 53-man roster if they didn't do that.
I think he would have made a roster if he hadn't gotten hurt. I really do. He's had a really good camp and shown some really good, a good special team player. He would have been and filled a role on this team, I think. But he'll probably start on the injured reserve list, I would think. I think they'll try to keep him around.
Yeah. You guys talk about the Patriots and the special teams players, good all-around players. To me, my favorite player of all time is Troy Brown. The guy was unbelievable. He played anything. I mean, return punts for touchdowns, kickoff returns, wide receiver, defensive back. That guy, to me, if Belichick didn't mention him, he's out of his mind. That was one of the best players of all time.
It's funny you say that. The first time I saw him on defense, I'm like, what are we doing? And he never embarrassed himself out there. I can tell you that. Very underrated player and a classy guy at the same as well.
No doubt at all. So we got to talk about the Yankees a little bit. It's written in my contract. The CEO here
rework that contract.
Yeah, I think I should. Of course, the Yankees are eliminated. Judge has a big night a couple nights ago. Severino pitches pretty well.
They're not eliminated. Be fair, they're not eliminated, but they might as well be.
Please, come on.
I'm just saying they're not officially eliminated.
Oh my God! I mean, But anyway,
I'm not expecting anything. I'm just pointing at it.
All right. Judge did have 3 home runs, but Again, last night they lose. It doesn't matter if Judge hits 50 home runs now this year. It's not going to mean nothing except for his personal stats. What do you? I mean, they did bring up some younger players. They're not doing well. I mean, what's the answer here, Keith? How do they finish off the season?
They need to finish off the season with some positive momentum, and I like the fact that they brought 2 kids up, but they moved Jason. Story they brought up Jason Dominguez from AA to AAA as well. He's only 20 years old. I don't think you're going to see him in the majors this year, but you may see him sooner than later. He's really a good player. I think the Yankees are going to reevaluate the way they approach this, 100% analytical approach to development of players. I think they're going to have to reevaluate that, and I think they're going to try to get younger and do some of the things that the Astros have done with their, building a base of their own within their own farm system, and then filling in spots around it, and getting better fundamentally sound players. That's why the Astros continue to contend every year. They're fundamentally sound. They know how to win when they aren't hitting home runs. This team this year hasn't hit really well at all, the Astros, and are a game out of first place. Yankees can't win if they don't hit home runs, and they don't know how to put together a pitching staff. And Cashman's probably safe because he signed an extension, and it doesn't sound like Steinbrenner's going to be moving him anytime soon, based on a couple of press conferences the last week. But if I was Aaron Boone, I wouldn't be buying any new houses, because Cashman didn't give him a ringing endorsement the other day in his press conference, I could tell you.
Yeah. Jack, I just muted you because of the echo and the sounds over there. That's why I muted you. Not that I don't want you to talk. Just
Well, the sounds on my end or yours?
Yes, it's on yours. So anyways, any chance of Hal Steinbrenner selling the Yankee team? I mean, he could get billions of dollars for that. I mean, he really doesn't seem like he's, as into the team as his father was. I mean, do you think there's any chance of that, Keith?
I think Hal is into the team, just in a different way. He isn't involved in the day-to-day operations the way George was. And people always, I love the people who go, if George were here, things would be different. They forget the mess George made of this team in the 80s, for crying out loud. Do I think they'll sell? There were rumors a couple of years ago that they were going to sell after they sold a good portion of the S Network to Fox. There was rumors that they were getting in position to sell this team, and they haven't. I mean, good God, they could probably get, I don't know what they're worth today, $7 billion or some crazy number. I just don't see that happening yet. I think it's a legacy for the family, and I think they want to continue it. I do think Hal's more into it than you think. I just think he's different than his father. He's more patient, maybe to a fault. And he isn't there day to day like George was.
That's true.
Yeah, Hal was quoted years ago as saying he thought a dynasty was winning 3 World Series in 10 years. That was his idea, as opposed to George, who would think, you got to win 8, 9 in 10 years. We're
failing on both counts, so
yeah,
because we got one in.
Both need to go. So Rick thinks they both need to go. Cashman built a flawed team.
year after.
Yeah, I mean, if you bring it in,
to get guys, Billy Epler, Jet, Met GM. Just take a look. Look at the Mets. They've been as bad as the Yankees this year.
Find me a young guy who is not relying on analytics as much. I realize it's part of the game today, but you just can't put the emphasis on it that this organization has put on it the last few years and think that's the way to win championships. It's not. It's proven it's not. And at least here. And again, I don't know a name right off the top of my head, but he's just because he's been there 25 years and they've been in the playoffs doesn't mean I should say I want him around. If I want to win championships and that's the goal, and even Hal says 3 in 10 years, we aren't even close to that. We're 1 in 20.
Very true. Very true. Good morning, David. How you doing this morning? Glad you could join us. Keith, so what is, everybody complains about the Yankees and what they should do, what they shouldn't do. Get rid of Cashman, keep Cashman. Get rid of Boone, keep Boone. But I don't hear no answers. I don't hear no answers to what the Yankees' problems are. I mean, if you go all young, it's going to take a couple of years to get this team together. If you go back and you get proven veterans, you might be in the hunt to the playoff mix, but you don't make the World Series. Is there an answer?
I'm okay tearing this team down a little bit and building around some of the kids and Aaron Judge. I'm all right with that. And if we have a couple of down years, I'm okay. I don't mind. I could be 61 and 66 and not be upset if it wasn't boring baseball and the same kind of guys who don't produce year after year in big situations or any situations, and stuck with an albatross of a contract with Stanton, signing guys like Rendon who are just useless. Again, I'm okay. If we want to rebuild this thing and have a couple of down years, I'm all right with that. Give me something to look forward to, though. There's nothing to look forward to. There's no reason for me to think this team, unless you make major changes, will be any better next year.
Keith, okay. Let's not talk about the mistakes the Yankees made. Let's talk about what they can do going forward. And you seem to be venting a little too much as opposed to a solution going forward. Like, let's take the players, for example, Stanton. They have a contract with him through 2028.
Eat the
now,
money.
it's easy to say, just eat the contract, just throw the money away. Stanton can still give you some use. He could still give you some quality, maybe not up to the contract. A team isn't going to take that contract off the Yankees' hands. No one's going to trade for Stanton. You've got to live with them basically through 2028. And so what do you do as far as Stanton goes? You don't want to make him a full-time DH. So do you agree with me? You work him hard in the off season. If he gets injured, he gets injured. Maybe he doesn't get injured, but you can't baby Stanton. Is that the only way to go?
No, I'll give you a solution. I get him off the team. The Mets were able to get rid of 2 huge contracts, and they were willing to eat the money. The Yankees can do the same thing. This guy has not won a thing.
125 million. Tell him just eat that money.
He doesn't have $125 million left.
He gets about 25 a year through 2028. His contract goes.
It's about
I'm
18
approximating 125 million. They would owe him.
It's about 18 million a year they owe him now.
The Mets ate about 60 million to move 2 pitchers, so I can do it with what this guy too. I'm not
an option on the 2028 season.
I'm not going to eat the whole contract, but I can eat a good portion of it. I'm the Yankees. I'm not the Royals. They can eat it. I'm just saying, if you want to start to rebuild this team, there will be some painful things you need to do.
So keep eating contracts. You don't pay someone to eat a contract unless the guy is so pathetic he can't give you any use at all. Stanton has a checkered history with the Yankees. At times he could be great for them, like yesterday got 4 hits. Okay, it's only 1 game, but he goes on a tear and he could be outstanding for 2-3 weeks, and then he could be awful for 2-3 weeks.
He's been awful most of this year. He's in 2-4. His OPS is like 730, which is horrendous for a slugger like him. 19 homers, 47 RBIs is the most indicting number on this guy's resume.
He's had a bad year.
So do you eat the DJ LeMahieu's contract too?
DJ's a little different story. We're not talking about as much money, obviously. He definitely has
45 million left after this year.
This is 2 years in a row. I don't have any excuses for DJ this year. Last year he was hurt a lot, we heard, and it affected him, but DJ might have to go too.
Okay, so that's 45 million. So now we're talking in terms, somewhere in the $150 million range. Just eat $150 million.
This isn't me.
You get use out of these guys. Have them produce. I'm sure you guys have worked in companies before. And you've seen co-workers. Wait a second. You were the boss. Make believe you were the boss of a company, and some of the big company, and some of the workers were lagging in certain areas. You find something where you can make use out of them. You don't just fire them and then pay them for a whole year or two?
If there's a place for them. If not, you're going to move them. The company I work for has done it more than once. If I have a place and there's people that work under me, we have tried to find places for them. If there's no place for them, I'm not just going to put them there where they're going to do a bad job there as well.
If another company doesn't want to pay them nearly the same salary, you're not going to eat 5 years of the majority of their salary to just get them to another company.
It depends on the company. Again, we're not talking about you and me. We're talking about the Yankees. It's a $7 billion freaking company.
They don't.
We could go back and forth on this forever. The first thing they got to do is find a medical crew that can, say, hey, this guy can't play. That's the first thing I would work on. Keith, we got college sports football coming up very shortly, and I don't think there'll be as many coaches changes as there were last year. But can you give us who do you think's on the hot seat? Is it Texas Tech? Is it one of these colleges that the coaches?
Locally here, I can tell you a guy's on a hot seat is Dino Babers at Syracuse. He's definitely on the hot seat. If I think about the bigger schools, listen, Brett Venable at Oklahoma is only in his second year, but he's going to start feeling the heat if they don't start winning. I think they'll win the Big 12 this year myself. But if he has another 6 and 7 season, he could be in trouble because that team's got much better than 6 and 7 talent. Steve Scarsazian's got to produce this year, or he's going to be in trouble. He has yet to show that he can coach with the microscope on him. He failed at USC, and he has not done. He's underperformed at Texas with better talent than a lot of the league. There's a couple of high profile guys that I can think of right off the top of my head. Mel Tucker at Michigan State, the thing that's going to save him is this huge contract extension they signed him. Jack talked about buying players out. Some of these coaches aren't going to get fired because they're going to have to pay him $80-90 million to go away.
Yeah.
And that's why Jimbo Fisher is another great example, right? Great recruiting classes year after year, top 5. Doesn't translate to wins.
Not for a long time. Well, not for quite a few years.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe it has something to do with the fame or the popularity of coach, whether he stays on or not? For example, say Deion Sanders has a terrible year this year, has a terrible, mediocre year next year. Do you think they would keep him around just because it's Deion Sanders?
Probably not. I mean, you got to win games eventually. Unless you've been there, 20 years, you might have some cachet. If Nick Saban could afford a couple of bad years, right? And he wouldn't get fired unless he wanted to leave. But Deion, again, and I'll give Deion credit. When he went to Jackson State, I thought it was a whole publicity thing and blah, blah, blah. Deion Sanders, while he may not be the biggest X and O's guys in the world, Deion Sanders can coach these kids and motivate these kids. He does a great job.
Yeah.
And I would expect, listen, Colorado goes out and wins 6 games this year. That's a very good season for them compared to where they've been here. That's probably the worst team in Power 5 football, I would say, is what last year was Colorado.
Deion Sanders has a lot of Belichick in him. When you notice, he doesn't take stuff. He'll just get rid of guys. He'll cut guys. All of a sudden,
he turned over 75 roster positions on this Colorado between last year and this year. So huge use of transfer portal and recruiting. And you want to see behind the scenes of how he coaches at Jackson State. And he's tough on these kids too. He doesn't baby him, as Jack kind of just alluded to. He was very tough. There was I think it was on Amazon Prime. Coach Prime was the name of the little miniseries. It was 5 or 6 episodes. It was really interesting to watch behind the scenes because he's not the clown you would think. I would have thought when they hired him. He's a really good football coach.
And I could see him coaching in the NFL and being tough on the NFL players.
Yeah.
And he has the background. Well, how do you question a Deion Sanders? The great Deion Sanders is getting on your case because he's been there. He would be given a certain amount of respect by NFL players that other coaches wouldn't get.
He won't be at Colorado long because if he wins 6 games, 7 games each of the next couple of years, goes to a couple of bowl games, either a major Power 5 conference team, Florida State, if they don't live up to expectations, or an NFL team's going to come calling with a lot of money.
Where
Yep.
does he want to go to if he can make up his own scenario?
I really think he'd be at Florida State right now if Mike Norvell hadn't turned that program around last year. I think he'd be at Florida State today, and I think that's the job he wants. But if
There's
they
two
continue to trend in the right direction, he won't get it. That's the
There's
problem.
two other schools there that are there that he might be able to go to, Miami or Florida itself, Keith. So, who knows? I mean, if the deal is there, he might take one of those.
It would be very interesting for Florida State with him being a Florida State grad. If he were to take a job at Florida or Miami, two of their biggest rivals, it would be very interesting to see how they reacted to that.
It definitely would.
Yeah.
So Linda, the true owner of Northeast Streaming Sports, says, "Good show, gentlemen. So my job and Jack's job is safe for at least one more day." So there you go.
Good. Oh, guys, I gotta jump in a meeting, so I gotta run. So this
Right,
great show
Keith.
get better as I'm popping out of here.
Thanks a lot, Keith. We appreciate you coming in. See you on Sunday, and I'll tell you how great the Jets are. The Giants are, and the Jets are bad on Sunday morning. All right.
Is Saturday night that game?
Yes, it is. So
all right, I'm sure it'll be an exciting 5 minutes of football.
Yeah.
All right, Keith.
Yeah, you nailed that one.
All right, Keith. Thanks for coming on as you always do. Having fun as always. Well, I don't know if the Philly sports guy will be in today. I know he went to the game last night, so we'll see if he pops in later.
Max got smashed at the game. He's not coming in.
I saw he was like at a bartender contest.
Yeah, he was getting.
Yeah.
Pax had a little too many, I think.
I
They
think
drove
so.
him home. No, he didn't drive.
Okay, that's good. That's good. We'll do some Philly news in Pag's place. Jalen
I'm only
Hurts.
kidding. I have no idea what Pax did.
I know. I hope we all know you're kidding. I hope. Maybe some of the viewers don't. Philly news. Jalen Hurts makes the cover of the Sports Illustrated NFL preview. So that says something. He's going to have a good year again this year. Devontae Smith destroys the Colts secondary. Again, that's exhibition is, as Jack says. The Philly Voice. Now this is interesting, Jack. They rate 10th best second string quarterback in the league, ahead of Cooper Rush and ahead of Zach Wilson.
I never did a rating of the best second string quarterbacks, but ahead of Rush, the Cowboys won with Rush, filling in for Dak Prescott. And what he shares in common, Marcus Mariota with Zach Wilson, they were both the second overall pick in the college draft. And Mariota has a little more, he has more experience. He started longer. You'd have to give him a little edge because Zach Wilson, we hear nice things about him coming out of these exhibition games, but they're just exhibition games, and he's dumped off a lot of short passes. They've been pretty conservative with the offense with him. He had a couple of highlight reel things, one a long completed pass. The other, he took off on a very impressive run where he should have gone out of bounds in reality.
Right.
Shouldn't have gotten a final hit. But Zach Wilson, you would think, would have more upside. I would rate Mariota a little ahead of him right at this moment. But Zach Wilson has upside because you have to figure the potential's there to get better. And with Mariota, it's not.
I agree. I agree with that 100%, Jack. I was surprised he was rated that high, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's based on reputation. But he had a terrible game his last game, Mariota.
Yeah.
But are we going to undo everything he did before that? And he ended the season pretty ugly with the Falcons, quitting before the year. He just didn't have a good season with them last year, and then it didn't quite work out with the Raiders, even though he wasn't that bad when he was with them.
Right. Let's see. Of course, we talked about Philly being in the first position wild card right now, and of course that wild card race is all up in the air to me.
Well, you talk about baseball now,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We talked about that. Interesting. The NBA is now launching an investigation into the Harden-Morey dispute. Harden claims that he was guaranteed that it was said, I don't know if anything was written down, but it was said that he was going to be traded as soon as he signed with them. They were going to work on trading him, and he called Morey a liar. And He got fined $100,000. Now they're starting to they're going to launch an investigation. Does that mean if he's right that they're going to take the $100,000 and give it back to him, Jack?
Well, I'm going to tell you something. He called him a liar. That's out of place. But to fine him $100,000 for that, I mean, it's my impression was all along when Harden signed a 1-year deal, they were going to work out a trade for him. That was my impression because last year he signed a similar deal, trying to base it to have a big year. So then for this season, he could have gotten like an extra big contract, if not a max contract, close to it. He's not that type of play anymore. I was under the impression that the Sixers did plan to move him all along, that was the plan.
Right.
What did Maury say to him, Mac? If Maury said to him flat out, sign a 1-year deal, we're going to trade you, or Harden said, I'm going to sign a 1-year deal based on you trading me, working out a deal, and Maury would then say, we're going to trade you. Is he going to say, did he say we're going to try to trade you if we can work something out? It's very vague.
Yeah.
I mean, the plan with the Sixers, I believe, may have been to trade Harden, but if they're not offered much in return, why would they want to make the deal if they trade Harden and get back next to nothing?
Right.
I mean, it doesn't make sense for the Sixers.
Not at
so
all.
It's a very unpleasant situation. I'm curious what's going to become of this investigation. But I will say this: if Daryl Morey flat out promised James Harden he was going to trade him, saying we're going to trade you, and he gave his word, and then he went back on it. To me, that's like a verbal contract.
True.
They should be forced to work out a deal with Sixers if they made that promise.
Jack, I blame James Harden for this whole mess. He signed with the 76ers. Why didn't he go out and try to get a deal with another team by himself or his agent? I mean, if you think you're still a great NBA player or a very good NBA player, why don't you have your agent contact other teams to go out and not rely on the 76ers to sign you so that you're guaranteed this money? See, to me, Harden wants it both ways. He wants to go to his own team, but yet he wants the security of having a contract if another team doesn't get him. And now he's mad because another team ain't willing to give up that much for him. To me, it's all his fault, Jack.
I know. I agree with you in large part what you're saying, Mac, but consider this. Why would Harden have signed that 1-year deal unless he was led to believe he was going to get traded? He had to have been led. I don't see him signing it blindly. 1-year contract, I'm playing for the Sixers next year. He was under the impression all along he was going to get traded. Right. Why was he under that impression? Did Morey make him a promise? Or did Daryl Morey say, we'll try to work out a deal, as opposed to promising that he was going to work out a deal? And maybe all parties, they overestimated James Harden's value. Maybe the Sixers thought they could have gotten more for Harden than what they were offered. Maybe Harden thought the market would be a little better for him on a trade.
But see, Jack, he said he only wanted to go to the Clippers. So why doesn't he have his agent call the Clippers? I mean, to me, this is ridiculous. If you think that the Clippers want you and you want to go to Clippers, agent calls the Clippers. Hey, Harden wants to come play for you. I mean, then work out his contract. I don't get it. I don't understand.
Mac, a lot of times these other teams know they have the incumbent team over barrel. The Clippers weren't offering enough because they felt the pressures on the Sixers. They have to trade Harden. Harden, by calling Maury a liar and trying to make things so unpleasant, thinks he can force his way out of Philadelphia because he's going to be so unhappy. He's not going to be productive. He's going to be a pain in the butt. Players do that. They decide to become a pain in the butt and force their way out. I mean, look at the thing that's going on with Damian Lillard, who's not being a pain in the butt, but his agent was telling, reportedly, Damian Lillard's agent told the other teams not to try to work out a deal with the Trail Blazers because Damian only wants to go to Miami. that he's not going to report, he's not this, not that. And by doing that, Miami doesn't have to give Portland top value for Damian Lillard. Okay?
See, but
they feel Portland's over barrel, and Portland might call their bluff and not trade Damian Lillard altogether because they'll have more value by keeping him as opposed to trading him.
But what Damian Lillard did was smart. He came out and he said, I wouldn't mind playing for the Celtics and I wouldn't mind playing for the Bucks. So he covered himself. Harden didn't do that. If Harden did that, then maybe we wouldn't be here right now. So it's interesting.
You have, even speaking of the Bucks, now Giannis is in the news.
Yeah.
He doesn't know next year when he can maybe go free agent, whether he's going to play with the Bucks or not. To him, it's, well, is Milwaukee committed to winning championships? I don't quite get it. Milwaukee's had a contending team for years, and they have won one championship. It's not like Miami's ever been in a rebuild.
Yeah.
I mean, they seem to have that type of team. I mean, what more can they add? Is Miami going to wheel and deal a little? I just don't understand Giannis. There was, at one time, I thought Giannis, wow, he loves being a Buck. He's going to be a Milwaukee Buck for life. Now Giannis talks about going elsewhere. At one point last year, he mentioned about maybe going to the Chicago Bulls, which I guess was a team he liked in his youth because of Michael Jordan, perhaps. But we just don't know where Giannis is coming from, what move he might make. He's going to be the big story, I think, next off season.
Yeah, I agree, Jack. So, folks, we're going to cut a little short today. No Philly guys, so we covered the Philly sports, and of course, if he was here, it would be more in depth. Tomorrow, the Mac and Jack debate show will be on the air, even though we are going to the game tomorrow night. That's how dedicated we are here at the Mac and Jack Sports show. So, and we will be back on Sunday for the big football show with us, Mac, Jack, and Jim Jeffcoat. So, we're not going to miss a day, folks. That's how committed we are to being on the air.
Right. And Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern time, Glove Fist, Frank Laterza, and myself, 1 hour boxing talk every Monday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern time.
So as you see, Jack is very committed to Northeast Streaming Sports. That's one of the reasons why we all love him here. So, folks, you have a great Friday. I don't know where you're at. It's raining out here, but if you're going to go out and party a little bit, be careful. We don't want to lose anybody out there. So have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Mac and Jack Sports Debate Show. Have a great one, folks.